I'd hate to have to train in every aspect.
You need these.
I do need a haircut.
There you go. Okay.
Thank you.
My wife is telling the truth.
All right. Is it recording? Is that good?
Yes.
How are you?
I guess we'll go ahead and get started. I'm sitting in for Heather and call it to order. We'll do a roll call of the planning commission members. Heather Lund not here. Howard Tritz.
Here.
Debbie Dolan here. Joey Edwards.
Here.
Lupe Bobadilla.
Oh, he's out in the field, I know that Lupe is.
And then I do see. And then Jamie Cipher.
Here.
Awesome. Any changes or additions to the agenda?
Not from staff.
Looking at the minute approvals again.
Trying to figure out who's been here.
Yeah. I don't know off the top of my head. I know I was gone on the 27th.
Okay, do we have those? I could look at those minutes real quick and see who, so we have,
Yeah, I missed one, but I
Let's
don't remember
see.
which one it was at this point. Why was that the last one?
look them up real quick. So the last one we would have done
It would have just
the
three.
Olson. Yeah, it would have been the three of you.
So we
could
can
do that
approve
one.
410.
Mhm. And I'll look at the other ones real quick.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we can go ahead and take a motion to approve the meeting minutes from April 10th.
I make a motion that we approve the April 10th, 2023 minutes. I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then the dates in question.
We should if it's just Heather that's not here. But it's just people know.
Okay, so
Or I guess
313.
Lupe's not.
Present on 313, we had Heather, Abby, Howard, Lupe, and Jamie. So,
Jamie's here, so you.
yeah, you could get Jamie, Abby, and Howard on
Okay.
this one.
All right, so we'll go ahead and take a motion to approve the minutes from March 13th.
I'll approve the minutes of March 13th.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jamie. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then on the 27th, it's loading. Abby, Heather, and Joey. So we'll still have to wait on the 27th and carry that one forward.
All right, it seems like staff has a fair bit of updates today.
We do. We have quite a bit going on. And so the first, I think it is actually an update on residents for responsible development rather than citizens. So staff attended the meeting on April 13th at Freight. It was a really well-attended meeting by the public, which was definitely kudos to Build a Generation and the Housing Coalition and Christy Galarza for the facilitation of being able to get convening the group together. It had really good attendance. It opened up with a presentation from Sarah Hamilton just about kind of setting the mission and vision for the group. And then Fred Mark, who is a past planning commissioner, just talked about the file a little bit. He really zeroed in on so they were talking about the Leadville 7, which is a withdrawn application. So fair for all of us to be talking about that for a minute, just in a sort of context. And so he talked about some mining concerns, some traffic concerns, and then preservation of recreation in the area. Yeah, I highlighted those. And then I was fortunate enough that they asked me to just talk about the county process. So we talked about subdivision, the 3 stages of subdivision, how we do a development review, how we go out for stakeholder input. We talked a little bit about ex parte communication. I thought it was important for everyone to understand that while no one from the Planning Commission or the Board of County Commissioners were present, that was very intentional, but it did not communicate a lack of interest. In fact, we're all very anxious to hear the feedback that's coming back from the group and to see how we can work together through the process. So really wanted them to explain, really understand that. Also, the staff is the conduit. Myself, Bryce, Cece, people want to provide comments. We told them how to find the files on the website. Just try to give them like a source of information. There were handouts, which were great, that Christy worked on, we worked on together, and then she was sent to the printer. So they had how to get to submitted applications, how to get to where they need to on the website. It was just really trying to provide a lot of resources. Then they did a breakout where they gave everyone an opportunity. They had icebreaker topics set up on several different easels, and there was community housing, health and safety, traffic, recreation, job, and I know I'm going to forget one, and community character. And so they just asked everyone to, that was there to kind of vote on their highest degree of concern in relationship to the Lead Bill 7 specifically and its previous application and in development kind of in general. And so they all broke out. I have had a meeting with the group afterwards, and I would say that the top 3 that I saw from all of those topics were housing, health and safety, and traffic. Those were really the ones that stuck out to the group. They are going to continue to work and meet with, I'm supposed to meet with them next week, so that they can better understand where that the county review process addresses their concerns. But I want to make sure that I highlight for them that although the review process might include some of these areas like housing and traffic and health and safety, we very much want their voices in the process. So really encourage them to come to the public hearing, explain to them that if you're somebody that doesn't like publicly speaking, to give us their written comment, and we'll read it into the record, so that it's not just something that they email in and we put it in a packet somewhere, that we'll actually read it into the record the night of the hearing. So we feel like that has a greater input and impact on the process. And so, encouraging them, even if there are areas that come out that are duplicative, let's work together to make sure that all of those concerns are in the entitlement process. So we're going to kind of follow up and see how that goes. Their next steps are to review their data, continue to kind of work on their data collection, and then they're going to have another meeting to bring these findings back, and then work into trying to create communications with the developer. So their next meeting will be May 8th. Again, I believe it's going to be at Freight, and staff will go and report back. And so they're going to try to do a consensus on the creation of a strategy with the developer, and then start trying to do an engagement and negotiation. I did encourage them to go ahead and reach out to the developer now. There's not a reason to have an application in process. I think it'd be better for them to have a kind of knowledge where, what the developer is thinking, and that we'll continue to work really closely, because if they're not successful maybe in motivating by leverage of their support, that we can ensure them that their concerns and voices are still within the entitlement process. So that's kind of where we're at right now. But it was a really good turnout. And I also encouraged everybody there to not let this be the, maybe this was the catalyst in coming out and making their voices heard, but we would love to see them in all of the development that we do. And so hopefully this will be kind of a change maker in that we start maybe getting more public interest in development review. So hopeful for that. Any questions about the meeting? Any advice? As you know, we'll meet again with them on May 8th, and we'll meet it with them between here and there to just talk through their concerns. I do think that there are going to be duplication of what the subdivision process and PUD process will do, but just want to make sure that we just incorporate that in, so there's not a missed opportunity.
You said one of the top 3 concerns there was health and safety. What does that look like in that context?
A lot of it was the mining, history of historic mining on the property and or the remnants of mining, and safety concerns about that.
Safety concerns about the old shafts and things like that.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And dirt, contamination,
Gotcha.
all that residual kind of things. Absolutely.
Was anyone
That
from
makes
the city of Leadville, did they participate at all, or?
Yes, Chapin came too. The question was brought up about annexation, and that is a question that the developer is pursuing with the city. So we'll have to kind of stay tuned and see where that ends up. I think it's probably fair to say that I think it might be reasonable to think that it may round back into a county review. But that's still, I shouldn't actually say that. I don't know that. That's for city council to decide with the developer. So, but I think it'd be good for us to consider that we may get it back. Yeah, Chapin came, Chrissy really explained annexation and defined that for the group. Chapin didn't have too much to offer other than to be there like I was to listen and really learn from the community.
Was the developer there?
Not yet. So they wanted to just kind of have a call to action and look for members that would like to participate and be involved. And so it was just kind of a introduction of the start of the group and the topic, and then they're sort of left for this second meeting and just kind of really formalize maybe kind of a core active group that'll kind of be the voice. Oh, Jamie.
Thanks, Anne. I just want to say thanks for going to the meeting. I think given our conversation about ex parte and all that, great to have this working as it ought to be. I just had 2 quick questions. One was, are you or any of your staff kind of tracking like visits to our website and seeing if in the, follow up from this, if there's a lot of interest and would that in the future perhaps inform something that we would take action on, or does that not really change what we would do?
I think that's a great question. I don't think that we have been tracking actual traffic to the website on our staff, and I'm not sure that I guess we can determine if we have an administrative ability to do that, or if that goes through IT. But we could certainly determine that and see. We have broadened our department, and we have new team members, so I do think it's within our capacity to look at something like that. Jamie, that might be a great suggestion. We definitely want to continue to make I think the website has been a tool in progress, and I think it's getting better and better. CC has spent quite a bit of time updating code and making sure that that is updated properly everywhere, and also has really taken over management of the land use side of the website. And so I think that she's doing a great job, and any suggestions for improvement or other ways that we could make that better sounds great to us. I do know that she immediately was able to get all our past hearings up on the website. That was something that before had been done by IT, and so we've taken over that portion of management.
Yeah, I noticed all those minutes up there now, which is awesome.
Yep, so but any other suggestions that you might have, feel free to send those to CC on our staff. And she would be happy to work with the planning commission or board if there are additional things that you think would be beneficial for the site.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe it doesn't matter. I just wonder if that's something that we're looking at, week over week. If we see a giant spike in something, maybe that's an indication that word is getting out, people are getting curious, and maybe that can help. We would hear about it through those analytics before we might hear about it through, I don't know, some other means. My other quick question was, if the concerned citizens or the residents go through with a CBA, what role, if any, would the county or the PC have in that, or are we completely separated and that's like their own thing?
So, I think there's still a certain amount of education that I have to gain about how this will all play out, but it appears that it would be a legal binding agreement between the group and the developer. So I would say it's a separate agreement. It certainly would factor into the application that they submit, and but I do think that it would be a separate agreement outside of the entitlement process.
But we are not the, I don't want to say governing body, but it wouldn't be on us to enforce that, oversee it, opine on it. It would be between the residents and the developer, and we would just understand that it exists and hope that everybody agrees to it. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Correct. Yeah, it would be up to either party to assert their legal rights under the agreement, and it wouldn't be anything that we would be party to. Just more of situational awareness.
Awesome. Thanks, Ann.
Sure.
And I know this is not, but do we know of any CBAs that have been successfully executed in Colorado?
So I know of, and we get to continue to do a little research. I was kind of asking Chrissy if she had some examples, and I haven't gotten any yet. I do know that this was precipitated by a one that was being actively pursued in Grand Junction, and I believe it was in their like downtown revitalization kind of planning perhaps, and but I don't have the examples that I were able to find were more around the job creation, like a developer coming in and agreeing to hire locally and pay a living wage, a good sustainable wage within the community. Those are the examples of kind of where I've seen them be successful, which would certainly be outside of our review, and so I had suggested that, and they use that as one of the criteria. Unfortunately, I will say it got the least amount of votes though, so maybe it didn't really resonate with the community.
Well, and I do think a lot of it is addressed through like referral comments and review, so it's like you mentioning downtown revitalization, and it makes me think back to like the opportunity zones of yesteryear, like how that never really played out. I don't know, I just think that there's a lot that you can just capture through your review and referral comments, and I'm sure that was articulated during that meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. So I went through just like like everything from drainage to traffic to geologic hazards to mining hazards too. So I just listed out every aspect, and it was actually in a handout. Because in the sense, I wanted to be really brief, but I had takeaways that they could really look at exactly everything that the code goes through when it looks at review. And I really, communicated that it's a very comprehensive review, and even the list that I provided was not an exhaustive list because every development is, has unique aspects to it, so I couldn't really give a complete blanket, bullet list of every single thing the development review is going to look at or is intended to look at, but it really did provide, I think, maybe that big umbrella of information. And I think that also shared with the group, many of them I had provided the staff report, and I explained to them, that we had found that the original application was very deficient to the point of not being able to move forward in the review process. And I think that, relieves some of that concern of, is this happening without any level of concern or regard to some of the issues that they were concerned about, because the staff report specifically talked to many of those things that they were concerned about. So I think it's a really maybe great opportunity to make sure that all of the community members feel very engaged in the entitlement process because of the depth of the review. And so, maybe it'll be just a really great breaking ground of a new time in our community where maybe people that weren't informed become very knowledgeable and really participate in the process. So, if there are gaps, if the CBA isn't as strong a tool as maybe that they're hoping for, maybe it will be, but if it's not, then they really realize there's still that opportunity within the entitlement process.
Does the developer know about our short-term moratorium right now?
Does the developer,
What was that
that's a good
question?
question, I'm not sure if he does
Does
or
the
not.
developer know about our short-term rental moratorium and licensing that's happening? Because it's based on the mix of what they were proposing the last time.
Right, it seems like, I can't absolutely say 100% yes, but I would imagine, because of all the housing conversations that we've had with the developer, I would assume so, but I don't 100% want to say that, I'm not sure, but I really do assume that he does, because we've had a lot of discussion around the subject, so.
That's just curiosity.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question though, but I guess I can't absolutely
And
answer.
the moratorium is a finite end, so.
Yeah, I just think, like, knowing that, because I think that was what caught some folks in rail yards off guard, is that there were a lot of ADUs that people were thinking, right off the bat, like, I can rent those out and make some good money, and then.
Well, that's how a lot of people qualify for their mortgages. Is counting on that income.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah. No, that's a good point.
Absolutely, yeah, we definitely heard those things when they started putting the STR rules and regulations in the city, that, that was a property that definitely, as they were coming in for building permit, that we were hearing a lot of groans.
Yeah.
About, so you're absolutely right, absolutely. Would you, and actually, I may just skip ahead a little bit, because that's a nice opener to short-term rentals. Unless you guys have anything else you'd like to, and you can certainly provide guidance to staff after tonight if there's anything that you think that we should include. I really like their convening. I really think that the next two topics that we're going to talk about will illustrate where I hope that we're as successful in conducting town hall meetings and getting public engagement. The two next topics, I think there's quite a bit of room in there to make sure that we included this within our moratorium period. So short-term rentals, obviously, we really want to get ready to have a county listening session and hear what the community wants and what their concerns are regarding short-term rentals. I think that staff has some ideas that we think we know, but we really want to make sure that we go out and that's just based on all of the comment that we received up to the time of the moratorium. But I think it's really time to go back out to the community and let you all have an opportunity for the community to engage with you and bring their concerns forward. And so we did just send out last week all of our cease and desist letters to all of our unlicensed operators. We did give them that 45-day grace period that we had talked about, but that's more consideration for their lodgers than it is for the property owners. And then, like it says in the staff report, CC reached out to the race areas, to Tamara, because we really anticipate there were, we looked at the calendars and realized that a lot of these were rented in August. And so we reached out to the race series and then all the other dates, it's not just August, to give them a heads up. And so we're meeting with Tamara, who is the lifetime fitness rep for the race series here locally, just to, she asked how she could help message out to the property owners, or out to the athletes, excuse me. And so we're just gonna meet with her and just continue to build that messaging together. And then our next kind of scope of work is that we are going to be looking at environmental impacts and saturation impacts. That's kind of an almost already known thing, but we're really gonna bring that data forward. We want to engage with the EDC and tourism to just get their perspective so we can bring that forward within our reporting back to you. And then work with Jackie Wheelahan and the Regional Housing Authority on the housing impact. And then we're really gonna look deep dive into the regulation review. We wanna look at lessons learned from other communities. We've talked briefly to community builders about engagement to just kind of help us take inventory of what other communities are doing within the state. So that if we go into a code revision, we really kind of looked at lessons learned and there might be some good models out there for us to consider. So our final deliverables will be a recommendation in all of the findings, but between here and there, we do want to work together to put on a public engagement. And then also, obviously we'll have a check-in point and a benchmark to come back with the data at different points in the research to check in with Planning Commission, get your feedback, see if we need to adjust somewhere, and look for your guidance. Also, if anyone wants to be directly involved with us as we do research, or you have information, or you'd like to be involved in any aspect of this, please reach out. We would love help and suggestions and guidance as we do this work. So we are going to be preparing a Gantt chart to just start having kind of that time frame, and then we could kind of have a more intentional action plan as we take each segment into the scope of work when we break it down. So if there's an area or there's information or experience that you'd like to lend to this work as we go through it, please let us know how you'd like to participate, and we so appreciate it. Any immediate concerns, thoughts on short-term rentals, anything that you would like? The city is also looking at their short-term rentals as well. So we'll also see where there are opportunities for us to engage with one another or learn from one another. I would suggest that we are looking at different impacts. We have different housing stock. So where there's some similarities, and I think we could be consistent between the jurisdictions, I think we also have to recognize that we do have some differences too.
The perspectives between county and city for short-term rentals are almost opposites. Yeah, it's a very different conversation over there.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if we end up in a place where, I can foresee that there might be a recommendation from the staff to consider a cap in certain areas. But I think that they would be based, I think I can see one tier immediately being based on environmental impact or areas for
Right,
caps.
saturation.
Yeah, and
sure.
saturation but I do think that, maybe all of these may come in to and help formulate a recommendation on how we consider a potential cap on them as one of the recommendations. I'm sure we'll have several, so.
Is there a hope for all of this to be done by the time the moratorium expires?
So we want this to be done prior. If we need to have,
I hope so.
if we need to have a code amendment, then we have to allow a 45-day to 60-day period of time in there to get the code amendment done to bring that forward. So the recommendation will come forward with the findings and will most likely result in a code amendment recommendation, and then we would enter into that whole process to do the application for the public hearing.
Just out of curiosity, and if you know, do we have any idea what percentage of the short-term rentals were unlicensed?
We had, did we end up with 17 total? 17, so we're at 100 and.
So not very many, maybe 10%.
No, yeah, just maybe
Something like
just a
that.
little over, maybe 15%.
Gotcha.
Yeah, surprisingly, we didn't end up with as many as I thought we were going to have
Sure.
initially. So,
And do we have any idea
A
how,
couple neighbors, but I didn't get around to it.
oh, it's still time. There's still time. If we,
Yeah, we're in the enforcement phase now.
that's
Yeah.
right. And
Noted.
we have a list. We have a list of which is transparent.
sure,
We provided it to Trail 100, so we have a list of addresses, and we have them mapped. I guess that's the other way, Bryce has added, as you've already seen previously, that awesome layer of data for us. We have a layer of licensed, a layer of unlicensed, and then just being able to see that different saturation through the, our visual mapping tools is really beneficial.
and what's the level of confidence that we're catching most of them? I'm sure we're not catching all of them, but what's the level of confidence in what we've done?
So I think that we have a high, we use the same methodology that hosts, like the city uses their enforcement.
Sure.
So it's going through all the online marketing sites and then doing
So
an
if it's posted out
identification.
there, it'll
Mhm.
continue.
So I mean, if they're advertising, or if it's word by mouth, or they're doing something with just
Sure.
like a friend group, or like maybe they're in a recreation group where they're doing a house exchange and they're not actively marketing,
Right,
then, we're not catching those.
Yeah.
But anything
that's a
that's
different type
actively
of operator.
marketing, yeah. If they're actively marketing online, I think we've got a high confidence that we've hit all of those sites.
Good.
And I was actually surprised. I thought we would find more than what we did.
yeah, that's actually nice.
Yes,
I've got a comment on the short-term rentals.
yes.
Speaking on my experience as a former assessor. Years ago, when they first started, a long time ago, my problem was the short-term rental. If it's right next to a guy's house, a residential house, and some areas were like that. Not most of them are because of the zoning, but, so he's got a short-term rental. Guy next door has got a motel. So who's getting it? The guy in the motel's gotta pay 29% of the actual value. The guy in the short term is paying, I don't know what it is now, it's
Below
7 point
7%
something.
now.
Yeah, 7%. I mean, that's a real injustice. They're doing the same thing, exactly. And I think that something's gotta come down from the state where they're going, not penalizing, but where they say, you've got to be in a different category. You've got to be in there 29% or something more than the 7%, because that would make a lot of difference on who had one.
It does, and it would make a lot of difference on our tourism panel and everything else. That's where those funds come from.
Yeah.
And a lot of the hotels are starting to raise that concern. Jamie had that same.
But back in that day, it's the only thing I ever took to the state conference. And I lost, of course. But, you know, the resort towns were for it, but the big towns, they had more votes. And the lobbyists said I wasn't going to take it to the administration because the year before they had taken the condos and he lost. And he said, that's my reputation. I don't want to lose 2 years in a row.
I would say that, I think politically, obviously, things are really changing, and so we may see some changes, eventually. Jamie?
Thanks, Ann. I know the Governor Polis just issued a whole bunch of sweeping statewide reforms to address some of these issues. And I believe, and I'm curious if anybody on staff could correct me, that there was some talk about reconfiguring what a lodging tax was on the state level that would perhaps redefine an STR. And I didn't know if we were tracking that or if that was just a rumor that I heard, but I think that would exactly address Howard's concern. And I think I remember hearing something about changing that at the state level. Do you know anything about that?
I don't know, I'll be wrong if I'll probably misquote right now, but you're absolutely right. There are big, sweeping changes being suggested. And Sarah, do you know? You know, not on a lodging tax, but certainly.
I think they're doing studies this year,
Okay.
because I think they haven't had good data until, like, I think it's taken like 5 years to get a grasp around, like, you know, what are all these sites and how do we mine the data, and like, how accurate is it? I know CCI has had a few lodging tax work sessions, yeah. But
Yeah, well, that's like, there was a CCI meeting where there was definitely some big planning and land use legislation on the docket, but I don't think there was anything specific about short-term rentals in it.
Not within that, but I do think that I think that we're probably on the cusp of it. So when you were introducing those thoughts, Howard, the appetite might not be there, but I would say it is now. I think everything is now.
It's
so.
gotten major.
It's distorted the entire economy, I mean,
Yeah, it has.
essentially, because you have distorted tax rates.
So, it'll be, but that's great information and absolutely something that we'll continue to watch and monitor. And when, there was a point of time where, I think you probably all heard the conversation that short-term rentals don't cash flow, they just defer homeownership. And those times have obviously changed. I am blown away at the rental rates and how much people are renting and making off short-term rentals in Lake County. That has
Yes.
definitely changed.
Very much a commercial enterprise.
Yeah.
I'm just stunned at how much the rates are now compared to what they used to be. So and in as much as we may only have 17 non-compliant, we have, I know of at least one that when the moratorium happened, was angry and is doing it in spite of the moratorium. So that one will be interesting to shut down. And I would say that the moratorium probably kept, I wish I had a better idea if I could tell you how many short-term rentals from being licensed this year, but we probably would have doubled had we not put a moratorium in place. People have even decided not to build because they can't be guaranteed a short-term rental. It is amazing how short-term rental is making a determination if people are investing, building. It has completely changed from where it used to because of the rate now and the degree of return on their investment.
it's a lot of work to do in a few months.
It is, but we go till September.
Okay.
Yeah, we have until September, so, but we are not doing this all in-house. Like you said, we're going to enlist the help of, we're hoping to enlist the help of community builders. They showed an interest in our preliminary conversation with them. And then we're also hoping, thanks, Sarah.
I did realize I never did the county commissioner roll call, but I don't know if that actually.
I think it's okay when we're doing just a work session. So we will not be handling this just in-house. This first, like just getting the compliance piece done, that has been the starting point has been in-house, and we're working with the county attorney on these as well, obviously, as we go through this. To get these, we gave them a voluntary pathway where they can acknowledge and say that they will stop operations, so that hopefully we can initially get compliance. I know that CC took a pretty upset call today.
Just one, yeah.
I just went, a couple of you. So I haven't debriefed with her yet on those, but I'm sure that we will, there's a big mushroom cloud probably over
So these letters had
CPD.
just gone out.
Yes, on Wednesday last week.
Gotcha, okay.
So would community builders lead the community engagement process, or are they also doing like benchmarking?
So I think that they would, our initial conversation was more around benchmarking. But I also, there wouldn't be any reason to not, I think I think we're kind of open to whatever they would have time for and probably cost. So I think we're open to anything at this point. And we also might go to our local conveners as well, to help with engagement since the CBA went so well. So I think that might be a good partnership to, we'll just have to see what kind of availability they would have as well. So totally open to that. May also enlist the help. I haven't talked to him in a while, but Michael Yerman as well. So we've got a couple different professional service contractors that we would look to partner with and just make sure that we can get this amount of work accomplished. You're right, it's a tremendous amount of work for an outcome. So we will see where that lands. I think there's a lot of people too that just assumed that short-term rental was a use by right that runs with the land and like a conditional use permit instead of a annual
Changes the use
license.
of the property.
Yeah, it's just an annual license. That's all that we allow it through, and not a short-term, and not a conditional use permit.
How do you rate your license fee? The size or what?
Well, we haven't, I raised the fees, I think, in 16 or 18 to $95
What a barrier.
from 30.
Well, it probably costs the city and the county more than that at this point, just to do the inspections.
So we don't, so that might be a change for us. If the city does inspections, we don't do inspections.
Gotcha.
That was something that they chose to do, so we don't.
Is that to verify bedroom?
Right.
Stuff like that?
They have a checklist of things that they go in for. I think that they look for egress windows. I think that
It's
they look
pretty much just a
for.
fire
Yeah.
inspection.
Okay.
But,
Yeah.
making sure there's not a wood burning stove, making sure there are egress windows and egress ladders and fire extinguishers that are
CO,
working and making sure that
CO and.
smoke detectors have been updated.
Okay.
So it's a very basic, but it's
Life safety.
Yeah.
it absolutely is worthwhile, and I guarantee it costs them that much money to do those inspections, just having Steve go out and do all of those.
Right,
It takes a lot of time,
absolutely.
and
It's a lot of
it's a
time.
reasonably long checklist, so.
Right. So, certainly, we can look at things that have gone well, so that, part of this will be looking at, like, what's working for the city? What do they think is their best takeaways? What things maybe, everybody's got pros and cons, right? What they think might be good or not good. So, but excited to hear those things. And, did you say just made me think of something like that? I don't remember what it was.
Sounds like my day.
Oh, the fees. So, CC's also working on, I put the poor girl to work the minute she stepped foot in the office. She's working on our RFP for our cost recovery study, fee study. Our land use fees haven't been raised in 20+ years. So they'll be looking at our land use fees and at our special event permit fees. So stay tuned. We'll hopefully have a different fee structure coming up too. Just as a example, our conditional use permits are $250, and I think you'd be hard pressed to find another jurisdiction that they're less than about $1,250.
Wow,
You know, we're way behind.
you better get with it.
We are working hard on it.
What's amazing is how much those fees go up and people take them much more seriously. So it actually works in their favor.
Right. So, and then we'll tie it to a price index this time instead of waiting another 20 years. So,
And I don't want to derail us too much, but I had one pseudo adjacent question to ask about the STR thing. I was looking back through some notes, and it was actually a vacancy tax that I remember perhaps being talked about at the state level, which according to Speaker McCluskey is not on the table this year. And I know that a couple smaller home rule counties were able to put this on the ballot and blah, 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 and that's the whole thing. But I wonder if there's anything creatively that we can do that kind of rhymes with a vacancy tax. And even if we know what the real number of vacant units is, and I'm just curious to know how many second homeowners have empty houses, basically.
So we did do some mapping, and I'll let Bryce talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I think we're trying to, oh, there's a few people want to be in.
Oh.
We're trying to get a grasp on second home ownership or versus primary home ownership, but the best proxy we have is in-county ownership and out-of-county ownership.